Now, we heard some, actually a Jets insider, or I don't know, the term insider, what does that even mean, right? Jason La Canfora calls himself an insider. If you think that any GM is calling him up and letting him know information, you are very wrong. Really, the only true insider, I think, is like Adam Schefter, right?
Or Ian Rappaport,
Yeah, or Ian Rappaport. Those two guys are real insiders, and they seem to be like the only ones that are actually insiders. But a quote unquote Jets insider, don't know what that means, but he said that it seems like the best place for Sam Darnold is the Chicago Bears. And while I think the Sam Darnold situation is kind of interesting, right? Because you have a quarterback that was considered. He wasn't considered as highly as Trevor Lawrence, but he was a well-known candidate coming out of the draft. And there was the whole Scam for Sam season, if you guys don't remember that. And he's with a coach right now that is, a really bad coach, like a really terrible coach. We saw him hide all of Ryan Tannehill's talent, which we saw. He's a little up and down now with the Titans, but we've seen that he was clearly better than what he was with Adam Gase. And while Sam Darnold hasn't looked like a spectacular quarterback by any means, he has certainly been the only life that this Jets team has had. And he is just getting absolutely killed by his team around him at the end of the day. So the question is Sam Darnold really the best? Is Sam Darnold a good option for the Bears? Is he the best option for the Bears? And another connection, by the way, is the current GM of the Jets worked very closely with Ryan Pace. So he was the Bears. What was he, like head? I can't remember exactly his position, like head scout or something like that, for many years. Joe Douglas, right? Many years. So he has a connection with Ryan Pace, worked very closely with Ryan Pace, and Sam Darnold is a pretty solid candidate. He's definitely better than either the two quarterbacks we have on our roster right now. Where do you rank Sam Darnold in your quarterback wish list, I guess you could say?
I think he's a good option. I wouldn't say he's definitely not the best. As far as I think I would go, obviously I'd take, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance over him. I think, where it comes between someone like him and Trask, that's where it gets a little tougher. I think I'd rather bring in someone like Kyle Trask in the draft and, build him from within and get him that experience. But at the same time, there's definitely an appealing aspect of that untapped potential that Sam Darnold has. I think, clearly Sam Darnold has more talent, more quarterbacking ability than he's been able to put on display with the Jets. But, how much more is there, and, what kind of coach is it going to take to get him, to play that way? I think that there needs to be commitment from both the coaching staff, management and everything when you bring in someone like that, because it is a bit of a project, and if you don't turn it around, it's a bit of a waste. At the same time, though, I think they could definitely get in Sam Darnold, at not much of a cost, and it would be fairly risk free. I think ultimately I'd like to see him on the roster, but I definitely would like another young quarterbacking talent on there as well. That's what would truly make me happy. Would I be happy if Sam Darnold, was named the Bear tomorrow? Yes, I think I'd be happy. But, we'll have to see. I think that Sam Darnold is a good quarterback, but just how good can he be, I'm not sure.
With Sam Darnold, I do think he is a good quarterback. And while there is a risk because he hasn't done a whole bunch, he's shown enough, I feel like, to have a team take a chance on him. And really, what do you think it would take to get him? Like a second-round pick, third-round pick?
I would think, yeah. Just with what...
Like a future
especially
second,
with
maybe?
How this year has been, I don't think you have to really roll out the red carpet for him. I think a second would be good enough. Even though he's a quarterback and he's got some potential, I think a second... and maybe, another pick to go along with that would surely get it done.
Yeah, so, at that price, that is an intriguing option for the Bears, because here you have a guy who is an experienced quarterback, whether good or bad. Okay, kind of Ryan Tannehill situation. We saw how much success Ryan Tannehill had in his first year, even though he had an up and down start. The NFL isn't going to be anything new to him, in other words. You have someone who is going to allow you to not only keep your top draft pick, but also really maintain all of your salary cap at that level too. So now you can go out and get him like a Brandon Scherf, someone who's a really talented offensive guard, and maybe draft an offensive tackle. If not, I mean, where the Bears are picking, they could potentially get one of the top receivers. I mean, they can go and get the dude from Alabama. What's his name?
Wait, what position are we talking about? Because when I think
wide receiver.
Oh my goodness. Shit. Why am I blanking on it? I don't know.
I keep wanting to say Henry Ruggs, but
well, yeah.
He's on the Raiders right now. Geez, I just can't, because he's very fast, also just very talented wide receiver. I'm trying to remember his name.
Jalen Waddle.
Yes, Jalen Waddle. Yes, exactly. I mean, he is an insane wide receiver. I mean, you put him in there, he's going to be better than Allen Robinson someday, for sure. So you go out and you can maybe get him a key piece on offense, improve the line. You have all this ability. Really, you would be able to tailor a really solid offense around him. Is he good enough to execute on a solid offense? I think that's been proven. I mean, he showed a lot of good things in college, ran a very, high level offense in college. There's tons of reasons to want this Sam Darnold thing to happen. And if it comes down to him versus like Kyle Trask, I think I'd take Sam Darnold, just because I think they probably have about the same exact potential going forward. And you could just get him for so much cheaper and maintain your top pick.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think that, it's a good thing to have a couple of options there, because they should weigh those options against each other and be, especially once they know where their draft pick is going to be realistic of, what quarterbacks are still going to be on the board and where they rank up with someone like Sam Darnold. Because I think Kyle Trask is at the very least where you draw that line. I mean, when it starts coming down to afterwards, when as far as where I rank these college quarterbacks, when it starts going like Zach Wilson, that's where I'm not even thinking. I would much rather have Sam Darnold. When it comes to some of these other people that are further down, Mac Jones, I'd rather have Sam Darnold.
Oh yeah, 100 times over Sam Darnold. And here's the other thing, and I think this is kind of a unique perspective to throw on it. If Sam Darnold doesn't work in his first year, it's something you can move on from very quickly. It's an option where you bring him in. If he has a bad year, you move on immediately. Okay. But if you bring in a Kyle Trask or you bring in a Trey Lance and they're not working out, you're going to have a couple years of them still, no matter what, because they're young, right? You're going to get a lot more complete view of Sam Darnold as a quarterback in his first year. And I still think that Sam Darnold could be an above average quarterback. I mean, you look at what he did with the Jets in 2019. They went 0-6, and they came in and they went 7-2. I mean, that's pretty impressive for a team that is lacking.
Yeah, and
a lot,
especially this year. I mean, a lot of his issues have been, where's the offensive line? No protection.
Non-existent.
Can't keep a clean pocket for his life. So, a lot of what it would be like if he was on the Bears right now, but the thought is that he could, the Bears could build a better team around him and get in a position to hopefully win some games. I think that he's definitely a great competitive quarterback, but he's going to need time. He's going to need time in a pretty clean pocket. But when he has that, he can pick out, any receiver, and he can throw the ball downfield. I mean, like you said, he was not someone that was, some scrub coming off the streets. I mean, I want to say that he probably had the same level of hype coming into the league as, it's reaching a little far back, but he's like a Matthew Stafford level, like amount of hype, coming in.
Yeah.
He wasn't like Luck. Definitely. He wasn't Andrew Luck level.
No, not like Luck.
He's still like, there's a lot of buzz about him.
Yeah, Luck is really the only person I feel like you can compare Luck to as Trevor Lawrence, right? Like, these are like two guys that since they were young in their college football careers, they were like looked at as this, when this guy comes to the league, no matter what happens from now until then, he's going to be the top overall pick. And people just knew that, right? I think Matthew Stafford's actually a really good comparison. And that's actually another person we can actually talk about, because there's some rumors flying around that the Lions might choose to move on from Stafford as well, which I mean, could there be an easier move to make for the Chicago Bears if the Lions move on from Stafford? This is the logic behind that, and I don't want to get too off topic, but the logic behind that is that they have an out in his contract this year, and they also have a high draft pick, and they're going to have a high draft pick, and they need to rebuild because that team is terrible. Okay. Where would you rank a Stafford in this type of situation? Let's say all the quarterbacks are available.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different because, like, the age, right? But at the same time, capability-wise, I mean, he's far and above anyone that's on this Bears roster, of course, right now, but that's not saying too much. He's not great. He's a really good quarterback, especially
above average.
At, he's really good at making some certain type of throws. He can really, I mean, he's always had a great deep ball. He's always had great touch on his deep ball. For receivers that can go up there and get it, he can always put it in the space for them to go up there and make the play. And I think that's what's important. He gives, his receivers an opportunity to go out there and make catches. And, he's obviously has a certain bit of clutch factor, has always been on a bad team, kind of like Sam Darnold. And I think what you look at what he's accomplished on that team with some of the bad rosters that he's had around him, it's slightly impressive. It's slightly impressive. I would not mind Stafford coming in. I think that would only be if the Bears really had that win now mentality, though. If they're really going to buy in to make a push or within these next 2 years, sure, bring in Stafford. He's someone that's going to be able to distribute the ball well. You give him a lot of good receivers to throw the ball to. He's going to need a clean pocket as well. You give him that, and he's going to be able to go out there and probably win you some football games, not going to lie.
I mean, if you think about even Matthew Stafford, let's say he is an average quarterback, which is, I think, probably what his floor is. Is he elite by any means? No, he's not. But what he does come with is a level of consistency on offense. And I mean, if the Bears with this defense, if they just had that level of consistency and brought in a good, he is someone that will give you he will always give you what the offense around you gives you, for sure, right? That's his base level. And then on top of that, he has a little bit of added ability with his deep ball, which is huge in modern day offenses. And he has a little bit of added ability when it comes to his playmaking ability. Is he a great playmaker? Does he come up with a bunch of stuff, in this clutch mentality? No. And I think that limits his ceiling as a quarterback. But again, if this Bears team gets an above average quarterback, that'll be so far and above beyond what we have ever had. And it's okay sometimes to settle with above average, especially with that sort of consistency, as long as you have a good team around them. And I think that's been, I mean, look at how far the freaking 49ers got with Jimmy Garoppolo.
I don't know. You can get far. I'm smiling because we're talking ourselves into it the same way as we talked ourselves into Nick Foles. You're like, you know what? As long as we get this quarterback, he can do these few things right. Paired up with a good defense, we might be on to something here,
Yeah. Kill me. We have to agree that Matthew Stafford is miles ahead better than Nick Foles, far beyond.
Yes,
not
absolutely.
Comparable.
I mean, if a much better career. I mean, I know Nick Foles has that prized, Super Bowl ring, but I mean, when you go as far as starting experience goes, I mean, he's got a ring, but Matthew Stafford has the most touchdowns passed for on Thanksgiving. So, you tell me which one's better.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you win some, you lose some. No, but going back to it, Sam Darnold, I am absolutely intrigued. And if I'm being honest, if I were to make a prediction as to who's on the Bears roster as the planned starting quarterback next year, I think it is Sam Darnold. I really do, because I would, unless there's a major trade up possibility, because the Bears will probably, I mean, there's some people that think that, maybe, Fields is able to get away from the Jaguars, that some people think that's a potential possibility. I doubt it. I think that he goes there. I think 1 and 2 are already set in stone. Trey Lance is going to be the trade up opportunity, is probably get someone like a Trey Lance. Maybe they try to trade up to get someone like a Zach Wilson, which, we've both expressed our feelings on Zach Wilson, and I actually have a video coming out pretty soon on our YouTube channel that you'll get to see pretty soon. But I feel like the best value is Darnold at that point, even over trading up for Lance. Actually, that's a tough one. Trading up for Lance and Sam Darnold, I think, are of equal values, because on one side, you can sell yourself on, hey, this guy has so much potential. He has so much going right for him. He can really maybe be the next big thing in the NFL. And that's what Trey Lance is he is someone who, if he starts to catch on to some of the more nuanced parts of the NFL, he can be a superstar. He can be a Patrick Mahomes-like player because of his added explosiveness, his deep ball ability. I mean, he is a really talented player, but there are concerns about, latching onto receivers and certain other aspects of his play that could limit him as well. Whereas I feel like with Darnold, you get, more, you're going to get a better team around him, and you're going to get a higher likelihood to contend in the same moment. What I would like best, truthfully, is if regardless of who they decide to draft, they just get Darnold, because I don't want the next quarterback that we draft to be forced into starting. And I think that aspect of Patrick Mahomes not getting forced to be a starter was so instrumental in his development, and allowing someone like a Trey Lance to do that for a year, or even being able to trade him after that, I think that's huge. I think that would be huge for someone like a Trey Lance.
I agree, and I think, adding on to that, I think being able to sit a year would be a great luxury, and I'd be more than fine with, Sam Darnold being the person that starts ahead of whoever is taking that, gap year. Also, a lot of things need to change as far as coaching staff and, offensive line. I mean, they need to get these supporting pieces around for anyone to truly succeed or to have a real shot at, extracting their full potential with this team. They do need to make some changes, before they even really get into the nitty gritty of who is going to be the best person for that role.
Hey guys, like our video, subscribe, and check out our bi-weekly podcasts on Apple Podcasts. Thanks.